Thanks for watching The Instant Reaction. For full episodes of the Cannon Podcast, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod. Welcome back to The Instant Reaction. Do this, George. Do this. Arsenal 2, Luton 0. George, when I was training as an actor, one of the things we got taught is that drama and tension comes from clashing objectives. And I felt that this evening, it was the same objective. Get through that, because the season will not be defined for Luton by a game away at Arsenal. And for Arsenal, we don't need to overstretch ourselves. We don't need to go and win that game 15-0 to prove a point. We just need to get through it, get the win, and move forward. And we did that. So that was slightly boring. I won't lie, for me. I'm sure you found that quite interesting, because there will be some pressing trigger or something that you saw that was interesting. But overall, I am pleased, and we move forward. I think it's just one of those games that you know, no one's going to look back in 10 years' time and go, do you remember that brilliant game against Luton at home? But these games are important in a different way. So maybe
let me ask you something. If this game style and this game performance happens from now to the end of the season, are you taking it?
Absolutely. No, and this is the thing.
This is the biggest point, in my opinion, in terms of the match. I mean, you're not sitting there saying it's been a barnstorming 90 minutes, but the fact that it wasn't says quite a bit for me. And the fact that you did this with a rotated 11, that made the maturity to kill the game in the first half and rest for the second, that's what we expect from the starters. That's what we expect from those that are in plan A. And they all did their jobs. I can't wait to talk about a particular performance that everybody knows is going to be my bingo. I'll save that for a little bit later. But I just think in general, mate, what it does to bring confidence, and I'll maybe even throw it back to you, the starters and the rotated 11, they had to go out there and make it seem like there was no gap. And as far as I'm concerned, particularly in the first half, there was no gap. And we did a brilliant job about giving and sharing minutes to a multitude of people. No new injuries, clean sheet, simple win. I'm taking it. I'm buzzing.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know what other people think.
Yeah, it's as I say, it's important in a different way. You know, it's important for different reasons. I think the game itself, I don't think there's loads and loads and loads I have to say. I want to talk about exactly Emile Smith Rowe. I want to talk about certain performances, and you know, maybe the discussion around, you know, certain. You saw it in that game. I think you see when players don't play together. You know, Martin Odegaard, I think, was slightly, you know, off in terms of some of his passing, but that's because some of the movement ahead of him wasn't the same, and the same, you know, the same with the players behind him, and so on and so forth. And you see the importance of that cohesion and so on and so forth. But it is important in a different way, and I think it's as you said, you know, if we have 8 more of those, I have no problem. And this is kind of where I wanted to start. You know, last season, that game in that slot, the sort of the April, I think it was a little bit later, I think it was the 22nd of April, just I looked it up before we came on, the game against Bournemouth, no, sorry, not against Bournemouth, against Southampton, where it was a sort of evening fixture. I think it was also midweek against a sort of relegation-threatened team who, you know, we were supposedly meant to beat. We went and made that very, very hard with our first team. You know, we went and made it a very, very hard thing. And we're sat here going, yeah, we're in a title race, but we can just brush that off. And that is so important, and shows how far we've come. You know, shows how far this team has developed just in the space of actually less than a year to come into a title race, be 8 games from it. And really, I felt that everyone was kind of going, we actually don't need to get out of second gear. And I think at points over the last sort of 12 months, and maybe even the development of Arteta as a coach and as a team, I have wanted us to be go, 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 go at all times. You know, Thomas Partey is the perfect example of that. You know, being that player who is just on at all times, go, 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 progressive pass, progressive pass. But actually, it is okay in a title race sometimes, you know, to win things consistently, to have these games. In fact, it's important.
I've got something for fans that want to argue against it, because I mean, you've seen the story of this season, the entirety. We went zonal at the beginning of the season in order to press on and make sure that we apply our energy. Conserving energy is not you stepping off the gas. That's a conscious decision. And, you know, I'm really tired of having fans critique this idea that Arsenal have to be at it for 90 minutes when you're playing 8 games in a month. Like, get your head on straight. That's not going to happen. And I'm sorry, if you're going to expect that, then, you know, you're expecting a reality that will never happen. So just park that to one side. And I just think what happened to Southampton last year, mate, relegation fodder. I would have loved to have a performance like this in the
Yeah,
same time of the
exactly.
season, and it shows the progression. And I think that no matter what, there's a certain level of pessimism because I think as the run in approaches, they're noticing new things about the team, and I'm gonna praise the team. I think that it takes a lot of balls to have a rotated 11 the way that we did because it wasn't small. And I
No.
think you either go to one side where you've got people that want an entire rotated 11, which again is not in reality, or the ones that say we need maybe two or three and the rest can play. We kind of went in the middle and we had enough of a rotated 11 for me to at least assume that there would be a level of inconsistency in the chemistry for sure. And the one thing that I saw, at least in the first half, that I was very pleasantly surprised with was the fluidity and the interchange between the front five. I thought was brilliant, and there was a level of understanding that everybody had in terms of filling their positions. There was a couple moments I saw Kai Havertz in the early parts of the game drop deep into the left central midfield position out of possession and let the front four dictate some of the press. And I thought that was a very interesting tweak for a Luton team that like to go man to man and at least play a little bit bravely off the jump, which I think Rob Edwards deserves a lot of praise for, but maybe a
Yeah.
little bit naive in terms of the type of team. But you know what? You love that because I think people want Luton to stay up for that approach. But it was a little naive in terms of coming here for points or for a win. And I just think there was a lot of brilliant performances. Trossard, by the way, getting us up the pitch, another left wing performance where people don't like him to be left wing, but he's sitting there and doing what needs to get done,
Including
getting
you.
us. And I think he did brilliant job there. If anything, I thought Kai was actually a little bit loose technically generally throughout the match. I think that he could have done a little bit better in terms of retaining the ball and at least the tempo of pass. But
Mm.
he gets himself about and he gets us up the pitch. And broadly speaking, I hope we get to that Emile Smith Rowe. He deserves his own section because
We
there
will.
that at least you saw differently with his performance. But I'm going to go back, and even Thomas Partey, I feel as though there were just steps in the right direction. I don't think that was vintage Partey. I don't think that was vintage peak fitness Partey. But there were some certain passes that I just thought, okay, that is what we do miss, the bravery. And sometimes it's beyond bravery. It's just incessant vertical passes from him.
Yeah.
The willingness to try that is something that we have missed deep in our buildup. And I think that, having him back fit and having that option there is going to be super important for the run. And I'll
Yeah.
just end on this. I thought David Raya had a really interesting performance for me personally because I look at these games and I really want to see whether or not we're going to change our style of play or we're going to become complacent in certain aspects. And I just felt like he himself had a really important role in making sure the buildup didn't succumb to last game's tempo. And I just felt like it was business as usual. We went from last week's supposed defensive tactics to the traditional barnstorming Arsenal, and we won it in the first half and we made things very easy for ourselves. So in general, really happy with the boys. And I just think this was a clinical performance, mature performance.
Really mature, really mature. I go back to that performance against Southampton last season, and this was our starting lineup: Ramsdale, White, Holding, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Odegaard, Partey, Vieira, Saka, Jesus, Martinelli. And then on the bench, we had Nketiah, Trossard, Nelson, Tierney, Smith Rowe, Kivior, Jorginho, Matt Turner, and Real Walters. That's our first 11. So to come out in these sorts of games and be as you say, professional, as mature, close things off in the first half, get it done, and then conserve energy, I think is so important. I agree with your comments on Luton in terms of being, they may be a little bit naive in terms of how they wanted to play out from the back and how they set up in certain areas. I thought they could have done a little bit better in terms of how they manage those transition moments, but I think everyone comes away happy. To be honest, I think Luton come away going, look, we didn't get spanked. We got no new fresh injuries. We weren't going to stay up away at the Emirates, at the Emirates, this season. So I think it's fine. Matthew Brynjolfsson, thank you so much for your super sticker. That is very, very kind of you. That was really, really
well
kind.
There with the pronunciation. I know.
Matthew, let me know if I've got that right. I had a second to read it while you were talking, so I practiced it in my head. Brynjolfsson. It might be Brynjolfsson. So Matthew, let me know how I've pronounced that. I really appreciate that. And Alejandro says, Alex, can you ask Arteta if he likes to touch balls? Yeah, so just a brief sidetrack. Sky put out a tweet earlier asking for questions for Mikel Arteta, and I responded. 3 times, and it caused a real storm. I don't really understand it, but anyway. I certainly will. If I get an opportunity, mate, one day my dream is you and me sit down for an
Interview.
uninterrupted, however long we want, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours with
Oh,
Arteta. I think that would be unbelievable. Oh, we've had it from Matthew. Top notch pronunciation. Unbelievable. We'll take it. George, while I get out the most important stat,
Kai Havertz better worry, mate. You've got 2 yellows left before you got a suspension. Like, fix up. You know,
that's it. Kai Havertz is done. I'll be getting up the important stat of the evening, which I'm very, very much looking forward to. In fact, I thought about 3 minutes into the game I was looking forward to. But I'm going to say Emil Smith-Rowe, go.
This is a player that people have constantly assumed character assumptions on, constantly assumed particular trusting from the manager on, and some of that's warranted. And I'm not going to downplay the fact that he hasn't had meaningful minutes this season. And however you want to attribute that, whether that's from Emil Smith-Rowe, from the coach, that is something that I think can be debated and rightly debated. One thing that I don't believe is true and hasn't been true for a while is the manner in which Mikel has spoken about Emil Smith-Rowe since the turn of the year in recent interviews has certainly said that he's got some trust back. And we finally have a performance that we can stake that claim to. And he showed something in terms of his defensive awareness, his anticipation, and his willingness to get fought into duels. He's created 2 goals here. This is the most powerful he's looked for me since 2021. He is back. And, quite simply, I wonder at what point do we stop saying some of these character assumptions about Emil Smith-Rowe and start taking the cameos, which for me, this has been leading to a strong performance for a while. In all of his bubbling cameos this season, I felt that he's been slowly adding tools. And we finally have a performance that I think even those that love Emil Smith-Rowe, like myself, but even those that have maybe questioned him can sit there and say, you know what, that's a performance that you stand up and you say, you've earned minutes. You've actually earned the right to compete in the squad. And I think that's what he's done. That's simply what he's done. You're not sitting there saying he's the best player to touch the pitch, but I am saying that. And, I think ultimately it's just brilliant to see, mate. It's brilliant to see because he offers us something that nobody else does. And, the one thing I'll end on, I don't think there's a level of goal scoring aura that our center forwards have that Emil Smith-Rowe has. Whether it comes off or it doesn't consistently, if you give that boy 60 minutes, he's going to find himself in the box in time and present a goal scoring opportunity. He created both with different ways this time. I loved it, by the way. He has a high turnover, competing for a duel that creates the chance for the first goal. Second goal is classic Emil Smith-Rowe on the underlap in terms of providing a brilliant, and let's call it what it is. That's an assist. It won't get chalked down as one in terms of an own goal, but that was all him. And then lastly, mate, like he's in the box open for a brilliant shot that, Mbazu comes across well and it's a small deflection, but he does everything right. And I just feel that if he's going to add this defensive steel to the side of the game, then there's nothing that you can then ask that he needs to do more of. So for me, that's what the most brilliant part of it is, because if we find a new interior in the run-in, it does it brilliantly. And he was my man of the match. He was.
Yeah. Mate, we talk enough. My thoughts on Smith-Rowe. The talent has never been the question. It's about his body and it's about his application in terms of, getting on the pitch. And that's been the question. And I completely agree with you that, this evening, what he's earned to me is being one of the first group of substitutes this evening. And that is a huge step from where he's been. At times he hasn't been getting on the pitch. That is half an hour per game. At that point, so that's a big step forward this evening. I was really pleased that TNT gave him man of the match, and he gets the interview after. It's all these little things, just putting him back in the conversation, putting him back in the players' minds. I think I text you this as well. Tweet this out. Smith-Rowe going in tomorrow morning to the training ground with that performance in mind, that's a big step, because I think sometimes when you're away from a group for a while and you're sort of, then your name is sort of stepping down the pecking order and whatever, it must be hard to keep up that application in training, to feel like you're part of the group, to feel like you're part of something, not just with
trusted,
the minutes.
mate. I said it to you in a reply to your tweet.
Yeah, to feel trusted. So I think to go in and, everyone say, Hi, Emil. How you doing? If you feel part of it, you feel part of the group again, which has never been, as I say, the talent has never been the issue. But what I saw this evening was a new step physically, which has been the question over the last sort of 18 months because of the physical issues. And I've always said, if he can get that back, I don't know if he can, but if he can get that back, then we're having a conversation. And if he can get it back, and as he's showing me this evening, he's getting it back, then the talent is not the problem. The intelligence of the runs, the way he arrives in the box, that assist happens because he peels off the last defender and he makes that intelligent run. The way he was challenging, even our box in terms of his defensive positioning. There's so many good aspects to his game. I think when he first came in, there was that sort of youthful exuberance. There was an incredible sort of Morgan Gibbs White-esque, just clear baller. Do you know what I mean? Just that ability, just clearly technically low socks, can take it anywhere, receive it anywhere, pop it off wherever you want. That comes from that youthful exuberance. When you're adding that next level of your game, understanding where to stand, not just relying so much on your natural ability, you then need to add all sorts of elements to your game. And I think he is starting to show that. So fair play. Well, we're showing it this evening, so fair play to him. Bizwajit says, can't trust Emery to make it a good evening. Do we know the Villa City score?
I think it's something like 3-1.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Yes, no Ollie Watkins Villa was supposed to give a chance to.
Even worse news, George. Even worse. That's nowhere near.
It's nowhere near good enough.
That's nowhere near the fucking standards, guys. Nowhere near. 59.8% field tilt against Luton at home. Get him out. I want him out by the morning. Get him gone. Sacked. Shocking. Shocking. I was probably expecting a bit of that, but look at this.
It's unacceptable.
George, is that acceptable? Does he need to go, blood? He has to go, blood. He has to go.
You have to do the he's a disgrace. He's a disgrace.
He's embarrassing. Let's go through the team individually then before we come to some questions. So get your thoughts and comments in over 1,200 of you in here, which is crazy. One was more than on the official Man City channel after last game, which is so funny to me. And secondly, just after a game like that midweek, we really appreciate your support. So please make sure you're liking, subscribing, and checking out the podcast, which is available for free every Monday for an hour. Let's go through the game. David Raya, we discussed him a little bit earlier. The long kicking and the long distribution, that's the second game in a row now where I felt like it's sort of the dial's gone up a little bit on the long distribution. Do we feel? I felt possibly. This is my guess. After the last time, the way the pitch was so compact at Luton, it felt like he didn't want to play out too much. I don't know. I wonder whether Mikel looks at Luton and says, is because they were committing a lot of men to their first phase. I don't know. I'm guessing, but the execution again wasn't great. Well, where's the space? Yeah, is the question.
So the execution's not great, but I mean, ultimately the decision to go long. The idea is where's the space? You've got a Luton that like to go man to man, and the space is behind that. So I saw the intent for it, and I understood the intent for it. I agree with you. I think his execution's off, and I think it's been off, to be honest with you, all season. I don't think his long distribution has been consistently enough something that you could say that's a pro for him. But really what I'm really impressed with is the way that he puts his foot on the ball to calm and choose the right pass through the center. And it's not forced. I find as though his decision-making about when to go vertical and when to go horizontal, he's just as much responsible for our build-up tempo as Saliba. And that's what's brilliant about it, and I just think that in general, his long distributions is something I still want to be ironed out because he's got the technique for it. I think that's what the annoying part is. I think he's probably one of the most technical goalkeepers at that specific aspect, but it's been more hit and hope. I get that's probably a tactic, but at the same time, curve the long distribution to remain in play. Like if you're hitting into space, don't hit just to hit space. Hit it so that it can be run onto. Hit it for a purpose. And so that's probably where really small, harsh tweak I would make to him. But generally speaking, his same proactive self, he's operating very high as well, the highest in the Premier League. I think only behind 3 goalkeepers in the Bundesliga right now in terms of his high positioning. So, look, I just think that job done. There was nothing that worried me about his performance, and I just think he could do a little bit better. So maybe a 7 out of 10 in terms of general play.
Yeah, I'm obviously picking out something that is, that was the concern, but ultimately, I'm just going to get that graph up because I think it's important to have a look at. There are so many things that David Raya allows us to do, and this is in the Premier League. So this is so looking at goalkeeper aggressive distance, so average defensive action distance from goal in the Big Five leagues, and the graph for some reason Rohan's copied it, so I don't know what he's done. He put it through some ringer. But you can see David Raya is way out in front of Vicario, way out in front of Edison, way out in front of Martinez, and yet only 3 keepers in the Bundesliga, which is a different league in terms of how goalkeepers play and in terms of the spaces available. He's so important to us in terms of the bravery in the build-up. Some of the pass selection, like we feel very secure with it now, but if Ramsdale was making those same decisions, my arse would be twitching. You just feel so much more secure with Raya. Like even some of the passes he was making inside before Partey would sort of whip it out to the wide channel to Ben White or wherever it was. I don't feel stressed because I know Raya can sort of execute that. But they are really brave decisions. So credit to him. Let's come to Ben White.
How can you continue to praise
jogging at points? Man, it looks so easy for him.
So good. And you remember that point in the first half where he's in the DM position? He does a beautiful Cruyff turn. The guy is just a stupid footballer. Yeah. And you know what? Like he's playing at half speed. And you know what's crazy? He's absolutely injured. Did you see the inside training?
He's got the strap on his knees. He played another 90 minutes.
The guy's a warrior. The guy's a warrior. Yeah. Honest to God, and you know what? Can people stop suggesting 11s when Ben White is not in it? Like it's getting tiresome. He's one of the first names on the team sheet, and he's just taking stride after stride after stride. You go to him, and I think that Saliba gets the praise and the rightful praise about how technical he is, and I think Ben does as well. But mate, he's a true Rolls Royce of a player. I've never seen somebody be able to adapt to so many different zones so quickly, and he's going from strength to strength. I wanted to talk a bit more about him because I just feel like it's not normal for him to do what he's done in the last 2 matches after the media shitstorm that he's had to be subjected to. And if you're going to talk about somebody that's invested in his football, that's invested in his game, talk about that. That is the point when you start to talk about how much he cares about football. No. Talk about the guy that in the title run and is being a leader for his team in this young team. And despite having lies being told about his name, is not bothered, gets on with his game. He just is there all the time. And you just got to praise it, mate. You got to praise it.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. And, I think the only reason he wasn't in my starting 11 this evening was to rotate him and to give him some time off. But, the guy's jogging around. And I don't say that as a criticism. I say it because the game was so far below what his level can be. And I think he's so good. Saliba and Gabriel, not much to discuss. I think they were pretty untested. Zinchenko, I actually thought looked all right. I just think, honestly...
Started well.
He started well. But, if we talk about game intelligence, maybe... podcast intelligence is maybe not to open the can of worms here because this could be a whole conversation and we haven't got that much time. But Zinchenko quickly has the team move past him as a kind of first idea to have Zinchenko inside. I don't think that's the most effective way of playing. It's a way of playing. It's really worked for us. But is Zinchenko inside our most effective way of progressing the ball now? Does it have the least drawbacks of how we do that? I don't know.
Yeah, he's definitely not plan A. Let's put it that way. And I think it's really clear. I think he started brilliantly, by the way. I thought he was one of the top 3 performances, at the start of the first half. And then it slowly went, like there was some decision making that he does defensively. And, some of that is from not playing as well. Like the decision to leave the ball and he's telling Gabriel to come. Like that's not playing. That's not you being poor. But there's a level of defensive fragility that you cannot associate with him. When teams target you and they go into a consistent way of saying he is a way that we can get at this Arsenal team, that's the difficulty with it. That's
Yeah. Maybe a conversation for the podcast on Monday or tomorrow. Midfield, just trying to sort of pick out the most interesting conversation out of Odegaard, Partey, and
just because before you move on, I think there was a super chat that talked about Zinchenko as well. From Mafia.
Yes. Apologies. Sorry, missed that, Mafia. Thank you so much for your contribution from Canada.
There we go.
Let's go, dudes. The way Zena played, he was loose on the ball. What do I mean by that? So,
No, no, we're not having that, boys. Thank you, Mafia. You know what? But I agree with your I agree with your sentiments. Absolutely. I just thought it started well and it went off a cliff. Really, for me. And he now firmly third choice? Is he behind Tomiyasu and Kivior? Firmly?
yeah, I think it's one of those things. I always say is like take a snapshot of a season, and someone could be first choice, then second choice, then third choice, then who knows.
Yeah.
But overall, I think he's still top two. But that is, it's a conversation, isn't it, about Zinchenko? I don't know. I think we should actually have that on tomorrow's pod. Mafia, apologies for missing your super chat. That is my fault. I take responsibility. Here is my chest, and here me, guys. Let's talk. Probably more interesting, maybe Reece Nelson. Maybe it's probably the final one we should maybe talk about. Clive Palmer put something out, which I rarely disagree with Clive, but he's put something at halftime
So
about.
what you're saying is Clive doesn't know what he talks about.
What I'm saying is, I hate him. Clive knows how much I hate him and just don't respect him at all, really. I love that man so much. He said something about his body language. I think I don't know. I don't know whether I agree with that, but I also would put a secondary point to it. It must be very hard for Reece knowing that Saka and Martinelli are starting. It's a hard squad role. And as much as we all look at ourselves and go, well, if I was playing for Arsenal, I would feel this. Yeah, you might on an individual day, but going in every single day, knowing, well, I've got to put, even if I put in the best possible training session today, I'm still not going to get in the team. That must be tough. That's his first start in 4 years.
And it's also for me in a position that he knows how to play, but his angles don't suit him. And I think every time that he's going to come inside to combine with, which is what he is, it's very difficult for him. I think he's somebody that has a lot of quality, and I think mid-table teams will look to snap him up, and there'll be plenty of them. He won't be loss of suitors. I think he's a two-way, strong winger that has incredible retentive qualities and has a certain ground running power that allows him to create separation. And that's useful both sides. I'm sorry, it just is. But when you're competing again, you mentioned Martinelli and Saka, but actually you should really start to talk about Trossard. And that along with Jesus, who can also play at right wing. Ironically, the wing position is something that we have options in. And no matter what, I feel as though that there are games for Reece, but there's not enough games for him to make a career here. Yeah. And that's just unfortunately the sad truth. So I just think that in this game, he did well. I don't think he did anything drastically poor. There was moments that I think he made some brilliant runs off the ball. And I think that he also got us up the pitch in certain moments and making really good decisions about what to do with the ball. He's very economical with it, but I don't think he's somebody that is jumping off the page to say, no, you have to start over the top two options. And we have enough of those players. We have enough of those players in the zones that he best operates in, that something has to give. And so, I don't know if I love the fact that he's not getting minutes, but I think he's the one that I really understand it.
We will come to your questions. So please get your questions in or topic suggestions or anything you want to chat about in the chat box on YouTube, the chat box. You know what I'm talking about. I'm tired. Mohammed Basha says, how come the player we really don't have a semi-decent number 2 for ends up playing 90 minutes, our number 8? Well, I was surprised not to see Vieira, to be totally honest, and seeing Jorginho over Vieira. I don't know. The problem with this, it's the same with like Ben White. It's the same with any player who we look at and go, why are they getting 90 minutes? You don't know. It may be true that he's been overplayed. I'm saying I don't know, but I'm putting the other options. It may well be we've got a different plan against Brighton. I'm not saying Odegaard wouldn't play, but I'm sure he would. But maybe they're planning to take him off after 70 minutes to save him for Bayern. I don't know. That's a question mark. I don't know. He says again. I also think you don't know the physical limitations or where the players are at. Martin Odegaard might feel fresh as a daisy. He might be saying, boss, keep me on. I want to play 90 minutes. It might be a case of, okay, or, he's got a bit of he feels a bit puffed out. He's not quite been there in training. He wants to play those 90 minutes to get those minutes in the legs. This is the thing with all of these fitness issues. Same with Saka, same with Martinelli, all this sort of stuff. We all sit here and go, why isn't that player playing? Why isn't this player playing? And we have so little information about what's actually going on. Who can tell me exactly Saka's fitness sort of story of his fitness so far this season? We know when he has and hasn't played, but do we know what he's playing through? Okay, well, you know, is it his Achilles stuff? What's the issue at the moment? Mikel said before the game, and the club aren't going to be, you know, obvious with, yeah, here's exactly his issue. So you just don't know. It could be he's overplayed, but that's my main feeling is I don't know.
I think that fitness and periodization are two concepts that escape most fans' knowledge, and they make.
Can George explain his periodization versus fitness using ESR and Nelson as examples, please?
Well, I mean, I think you actually should put Vieira in this because he's fit, but you know the match sharpness aspect is something that I think needs to come into it with, and periodization is kind of this concept in fitness and physiotherapy about the point at which you want to integrate intensity. And that's called periodization. It just simply means on this fitness curve, somebody is fit because they can run. That's the lowest end of the curve. But this idea that they're fit to start matches, they're fit to do particular intensities, that's a gradient and that's a process. And I think you look, for example, at Emile Smith Rowe, who hasn't started a Premier League game in, I'm not going to name the specific timeline, but in a very long time. I forget what it is exactly. But he's an example of a player that a lot of people are saying gassed out at 50 minutes. Well, of course he did. He hasn't played at this intensity for how many years, legitimately. And so this idea that people just expect, well, you were fit, you told me that you were fit, therefore you must play 90 minutes, is this misconception that fans have a lot. And I think that Reece Nelson, on the other hand, even himself, he's had a lot more sample of cameos at the very least. And so I think that when physios work to build in players, and you look at a Thomas Partey, another example of somebody coming back from injury, he started with 2 or 3 20-minute cameos, and then he's building himself up to a start. And from a start, you hope to take him off after 60 minutes. And then you slowly build up to hopefully get a 90-minute run. And so I think that spectrum of match fitness, it's not linear, it's not exact. People want exact numbers and exact games and exact times. But fundamentally, it's just this idea that fitness is a spectrum, and that just because somebody is fit, it means that they're not injured. But the idea that they're ready to contribute to a match and in terms of having the intensity for that are very different.
Yeah, and I would also suggest that, you know, with lack of recovery time between games, you know, it might be a case of, you know, we do a light session today, but then you're going to play 60 minutes, and what does that do for you? It's there's so much that goes into it, and so little information that we have, that I think with fitness, unless it's like Ben White is obviously playing with an injury earlier on in the season, which is when I would step in and say, I think we need to do something. I tend to stay away from those sorts of conversations.
They wear devices that let you analyze the VO2 max, which is the oxygen uptake in
they
the
have
body.
so much more information than me
Can
about
we
that sort of
stop
stuff.
and dead the fitness conversation? Like, I don't need Joe from Cheshire that tells me that somebody's not fit.
Joe from Cheshire.
About fitness. It's the most ridiculous concept to me. That
Ben from Leicester, what are you doing? George from Birmingham.
It's the most ridiculous concept, and I don't understand why we entertain it in football discourse. I genuinely don't. You don't have a medical background. You don't have an idea about what you're talking about, and it's just the most ridiculous concept.
Cheshire. Yeah. Or Bashir from Egypt. No, but I think it's a valid question. I think it's a completely valid question. I just think, like, my point is, like, I always say this about things. People will say something like, I don't know, and then proceed to, like, go, so this should happen. My point is, I don't know, so I don't know what should happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening, but this. It's like, no, I don't know. I don't know. So Alex Osborne says, we haven't scored from a corner or set piece in a while. Any concerns there?
Yeah, it's a weakness in the game. I know that's not what Alex is saying. I think it's just the ebbs and flows of a season. Fundamentally, we're the most complete set piece team, both offensively and defensively. So it's brilliant.
Alex, solidarity. Yeah. I think someone asked it in the press conference and was like, "Is it a bit of a concern?" And Mikel kind of laughs. It's like, I mean, we're winning games, so like it's just one of those things. When Jenkins says Martinelli right wing, yeah, that's the thing we've seen the last 2 games.
Well, I think it's the theory behind Gabriel Jesus in terms of his potential at right wing and the idea that he probably wasn't fit to do that. And he played his minutes, and we didn't want to risk him with any more minutes. And I think in terms of having a touchline winger, Martinelli's done that, by the way, multiple times. I don't know why it's such a surprise. I mean, he's played it for Brazil quite a bit, and in terms of the role that we're going to ask, if we're asking for a touchline winger and you want somebody that's not Gabriel Jesus to do that, then you're left with very little options. So I think right wing is perfectly fine for him. He doesn't stick to the right wing. He has brilliant movement, and I think I have no problem with it. He's just getting bounce back minutes, right, from his foot injury. So anything that he's on the pitch with is something that you're going to take a positive with.
Mark Leon Cabale says, "Tranquilo, guys. We're winning this league. Best in almost every metric consistently. What more do we need to have confidence?"
Retweet.
Oh, Peter Wisniewski. Have you got Polish in you? I think that's why you got Polish family, haven't you?
Me?
Have I made that up? Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're Greek. I completely made that up. I know you're Greek, but I swear you had some Polish as well. I made that up.
No. Yeah. Full blow
I'm just
Greek.
pure British bulldog,
From
mate.
both sides.
Pure British. I'm pure British, mate. Apart from the last, whenever the Anglo-Saxons came in. Before that, pure British. When was the last time we had 24 goals conceded after 30 games? Not used to also being good at defending. Yeah, mate. Four goals conceded in 2024. The next best is 8 with City.
I think 3 of those people attribute to mistakes by Saliba.
Wait,
stats that you didn't think about.
But what are they? So they're the Ramsdale mistake.
Then isn't there the Raya one? The misconstrued with Saliba. There was that miscommunication. Can't remember who it was.
What actually are the goals? I can't quite remember.
That's
Isn't
one
this
of
mad
them.
that we have to try to remember the goals that we've conceded?
Yeah, no, it's insane.
So goals we conceded are, let me just go back through it. This is in the Premier League, by the way. So yeah, Brentford's, that's the Ramsdale mistake. So that's not us getting played through. So get goals where we've got played through. That doesn't count. That's a mistake. Newcastle
yeah, there's
scored.
Liverpool.
Oh, the Willock one. Okay, yeah. Well, he's an ex-Arsenal player, so that doesn't count. Liverpool in the Premier League, the Gabriel own goal. We scored that, so that doesn't count either. And Forest, Awonyi. 89th minute.
I don't remember that one.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah,
What's
I don't remember
that one. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah,
so
again,
basically,
I think Saliba. Like I said, I think 3 of the 4
were. Forest was the Saliba error.
Yeah, so that's why I think 3 of the 4 were ironically Saliba errors. So I think, look, mate, it is a joke. And I got asked this on Twitter, and we can maybe end on it. The Chelsea record, 15 goals. Is that being broken?
Sorry, that was it. The Awonyi bullied Saliba. Yeah, I remember that. I remember now,
yeah. Do you think that's something that we can look towards next season?
What are we on so far?
I mean, it's difficult because you can't take snapshots of a season, right? Like in the same way that you can't project that the 19 games of last season was going to be a forward trajectory. I don't think you can also say, okay, from 2024, you're going to only concede 4 goals. Of course, we've got a lot of games to play, but this is a superior defensive performance, and it's a snapshot in our project. I just don't know if that's a pattern or a trajectory. The one thing that I will say, I think 15 goals in a season is a ridiculous record that in the modern day, with the amount of games that you play, is beyond difficult.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'll say is probably Arsenal will get the closest to that. That I can expect, because I think this defensive ability is not something that we'll see go away.
I think we could aim for like 22, something like that. I think we're at 24, but like,
we just play too many games.
With the amount of games, and also I always say this: the quality of the league. People, people always go, well, how could he, how could you say that Rodri's one of the best midfielders of all time? Look back to, I'm not saying that, the likes of, Vieira and Scholes and, incredible players, right? Incredible players. But the quality, like, look how good Luton are. Like, I'm not doing a pet here. They're so good. I'm not doing that. Look how well coached they were in the final third. We're just really good. And the level of the players. Who's that Clark guy, number 18? He is top. Stick him 20 years ago. He's playing in a top 4 team. He's so good, but the quality is unbelievable. The nutrition, the fitness, how far everyone's running, how well everyone looks after themselves, the technical level, the athletic level, the competitive level, everything's gone up. So I just don't see the money in the game. Everything's gone up. So scouting, everything. So I just don't see how that happens again. I don't. Not 20 years on. But mate, I think we could aim for 21, 22, something like that. I think that would be incredible. Let's finish there. Let's do one more question. We're for 40 minutes. Let's do one more question. So get your questions in, and we'll do one more thing. Thank you. There's 1,300 of you in here, which is
let's
crazy.
not do the one question that you guys want to end it on. Let's do a real one.
Wait, what? Oh, the guys, ask the question. Does George like to touch balls?
No.
Someone commented on a stream I did. Can I just read it out? It's so funny. It's so funny. He goes, it was, I'm a big fan of the football analysis on this channel, but the sense of humor is literally prepubescent. Seriously, people. Field tilt was not shown. It was, my friend, a little bit earlier. Touch balls, or I'm on subbing. Kill someone.
Oh, okay.
Oh, from the
Pep.
Pep. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. Okay, actually, let's finish with this. Oh no, let's finish with this. Are we signing Isak?
No. I don't believe that we do. I think that he's somebody that's on the list. I don't think that you cannot ask the question, but I just think that Newcastle, as far as they're concerned, they have other sellable assets that they can make money on in terms of trying to protect themselves from PSR. And I just think that Alexander Isak is a brilliant profile. He'll do things in a different way. I didn't quite have my opinion on him. I think when you guys did the breakdown, I wasn't there for that. But I think there is a better way and a better use of funds that I'd like to see guided towards than that. But he's definitely on the list, and he's not somebody that I think people should look down upon. And I think he's more of a killer than people actually give him credit for. Like a lot of people will quote what he does outside of the box, but I do think when he is in the box, his shot placement is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant in terms of where he puts it away from the keeper each time. So I think he has that ability in him, but I don't think he's a dominator in like the 6-yard box. I definitely think he's somebody that gets involved in other aspects. And so it's not that it's a con, but it's a different way of playing.
Man, I think his game is so complete. I think a lot of people will waffle about him, to be honest. I think his game is so complete, apart from the one thing that Arsenal really, really need, which is kind of that box, that separation in the box, that, you know, absolute killer poacher instinct. You know, it's there. I think I said this in the video for the Cannonpod. It's there, but like it will need developing. We need some time. And the thing we need is that we need that inevitability in the box. So yeah, I think it's a kind of right price player. It's, you know, if we can get that for, you know, I'm sure Newcastle wouldn't
75, do it. Then like we're talking, but mate, it's 100
60, 70, I'm doing it. But you know, if we're getting into the 100 conversation, I'm not having it.
He was bought for something like 70 million pounds back when he was bought.
And has he signed a new deal?
I don't know about that. Don't quote me. That I'm not sure. But I do think he's on a long-term contract, and so they're not selling him for less than 100 million.
Someone has said, touch balls, then at the end, Alex, try to pronounce my name, then end the stream. Okay. Ifelolua Lanre Bamodu.
That's not bad. You're not bad. I would be too afraid to attempt.
Go on.
Me? No. Just listen to what he said earlier. Rewind it back. Yeah. Sorry,
George. Mate. The people want touch balls.
Well, we shouldn't always give the people what they want.
We should always give the people what they want. But important game. Important results. Not the most interesting game for me personally. I think we'll learn more from other games, but that is okay. You know, I think as we said at the beginning, not every game needs to be some barnstorming win. To go there, get that result, not knacker ourselves out, and you know, turn our focus to Brighton the weekend is important. We will be back for instant reaction after the Brighton game. We'll be back for a Patreon and YouTube members only podcast tomorrow. So look out for that if you are one of the members and patrons. Thank you so much for supporting us. Or if not, the free podcasts are always available on a Monday for an hour every single week. Till then, peace.
In You don't like to touch wolves? So I love it. So yeah, come. You don't like to touch wolves? You don't like to touch wolves? Touch wolves? Touch wolves? Touch. You don't like to touch wolves? 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 So I love it. 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 The Korean guy, and so I love it. 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 You don't like to touch wolves?